Welcome everybody to today's webinar. Thank you for your patience there during a small technical hitch. We've got everything pretty much plugged in now. Today's webinar is here today on the 5th of September, and we're going to be talking about our relaunched development program today. And today we have with us in the studio one speaker, Elsabe Mattia, and joining us, and I'll introduce them in a moment, is Jason and Joshua as well from South Africa. We'll come to those in a moment. First of all, Elsabe, welcome to the studio today. Good to see you.
Thank you, Colin. Nice to be here.
Brilliant. Always lovely to have you. We're looking forward to your presentation. And coming to us from South Africa actually today, a very good African flavour, is first of all Jason Nyman, who's our market representative for Africa, the whole of Africa.
Hello, everyone.
Hi Jason, good to see you. Thank you. We've mentioned you many times on these webinars, particularly we're very proud you joined us earlier this year as a market representative for Africa. Thank you. And new for the first time actually for us is Joshua Ponsami, and Joshua is from Box Superstores. Hi Joshua, great to see you. Thank you very much for coming today. Really brilliant for you to join. So you should see everything perfectly well now. Thank you very much. It was getting over the shock of the European summer holidays. So let's first of all turn to today's topics. So today we're going to be talking about the overall development program. There we go, thank you. And we're going to get, after Elsabe's spoken about the development program, a regional market update from Jason. And then fourthly, we're going to have the presentation from Joshua, giving a real market perspective on the development program. And as Joshua said, it's a very important development program. It's really globally important, and he's going to tell us a little bit about that as well. Then we're going to turn to Q&A. Today we prepared some Q&A in advance. Thank you everybody for sending in your questions. We've got some good questions lined up, and we're still looking to take the full hour as always. And as always, we're live here from the Netherlands, and you can see we're live today in real time as well. Now, the next thing we're going to quickly look at is the practicalities of today. So first of all, everybody's on mute, and as always, you get the opportunity to ask your questions in the chat. And basically, because we're in the studio, we can have the questions come through to us, and we look at those as we're speaking. You obviously have the webinar recorded, as always, and afterwards we distribute that to the attendees. And people may join us afterwards, not in real time as well. And as always, we really welcome you to our webinar, and we're looking forward to sharing the topic with you. Now, let's have a look at the Foundation FSSC. Of course, Foundation FSSC, many of you are very familiar with us already, and that's why you're here today to look at the development program. We now have a shade under 39,000 FSSC 22,000 certificates, and we've really been promoting FSSC 24,000 as well, and we have many users starting to develop for that as well, including our certified organisations. Today's special topic is the development program. We'll tell you more about that shortly. And on the next slide, we're going to launch a poll, and while the poll is being launched, we'll be able to tell you a little bit more about the foundation. So the questions we're going to launch in a second to you are basically, the first one is, how familiar are you with the development program? And the first question, A, is not familiar at all. This is why you've joined today to learn. The second one, B, is you're somewhat familiar, and today you've attended to learn more about the development program. And finally, two more, I hold a conformity statement already. So a number of organisations already have those, and we welcome those on the call today. And fourthly, I accept it from my suppliers. And when we get to Joshua in particular, that'll be a very important topic. Now, what I'd like to do is already give you an answer for the poll. Thank you for fingers on the buttons on that one. So today, broadly percentage-wise, we have about a third of you saying you're not familiar at all, and you've joined today to learn more. Thank you. And many of you will be familiar with the 22,000 program or 24, and that's why you've joined today about the development program. The majority of you on the call today are somewhat familiar, and you want to learn more. And for particularly Jason, Joshua, and Elsabe, that'll be useful for you to know as well. So you know that many folks on the call today are joining with a level of knowledge, but they're here to learn more, so thank you. Really pleased to see quite a number of organisations on the call today actually hold a conformity statement, so we expect some good questions from you as well. And thank you very much for taking one of those conformity statements and going through the development programme. With that, I think we'll now look a little bit more at the brand identity, we call it, FSSC in a nutshell, and then we'll turn over to Elsaby to talk about the development programme in a bit more detail. So really in FSSC, basically at our heart, we of course are a not-for-profit organisation, and we basically have our value propositions around capacity building, development programmes and assurance, etc., which we're going to talk about in more detail today, the schemes, and also our digital solutions. And our digital solutions are particularly helpful, of course, for organisations who are looking for more data about the supply chain. Again, conformity assessment is an interesting thought for topic there. So without further ado, we're now going to turn to Elsaby, who's going to talk about the programme structure and really how we operate the programme there with the integrity as well. And over to you, Elsaby. That will give you a couple of minutes there to talk about that before we turn to the other speakers. Thank you and welcome to the studio, Elsaby.
Great. Thanks a lot, Colin. And it's wonderful to be here in the studio today, also to inform our attendees more about our FSSC development program. So I will provide a brief overview and an introduction, and then later on focus a little bit more about version 2 of our development program that we launched. So to start off with, just briefly, what is the FSSC development program? And in essence, it's an assessment program for organizations to demonstrate conformity of their food safety systems. The purpose is addressing the global food safety challenges with a growing world population, but also meeting the increasing demand for affordable, safe and quality food products, and to be able to demonstrate that to your customers. The target audience for the development program is really small and medium-sized enterprises or SMEs, but it's also there for larger enterprises who want to use it as part of their vendor assurance programs. So when we look at the program structure, and specifically the design, it was designed to be an easy-to-use solution for SMEs and to help them develop and implement their food safety systems. But it's also ideal for those organizations who might not be fully ready for third-party certification. We've therefore developed self-assessment tools, checklists, to also help and support organizations in terms of meeting the requirements of the development program. It's also important to note that it is set up to be a flexible program, flexible progression, and with that we mean that organizations may decide to stay with the development program, or they might move to full FSSC 22000 certification. When we look at the technical foundation of the program, it is aligned with Codex HACCP, and it also includes the food safety elements of ISO 22000. The FSSC 22000 structure is aligned. When we look at the development program, as I said, it allows for flexible progression options for organizations depending on their specific situations, but also the customer or the market requirements. Assessments against the development program are conducted by licensed conformity assessment bodies, or CABs, and successful completion results in a conformity statement with a validity of 1 year. HACCP is fully integrated in the program to address food safety, along with the sector-specific PRPs. The program is owned and governed by FSSC, and part of the governance includes FSSC's dedicated monitoring and verification program, which is managed by our integrity department. The purpose being to ensure high quality and robust assessments are delivered by our licensed CABs to further trust in the market. And part of the output for organizations are that they receive a standardized assessment report and a conformity statement that they can also share with their customers, as well as being listed on the FSSC public register. We will now look a little bit at the FSSC Development Program revision. As part of our program revision process, we conducted a global survey in 2024, and this was sent to CBEs and industry, specifically focused on the development program. The main outcomes from the survey was to extend the scope of the program to include transport and storage, as well as packaging, to amend the assessment duration, to provide more support materials such as guidance documents, but also trainings and webinars, and generally to increase the awareness of the program and gain program acceptance. We therefore utilized the output of the survey, and we developed version 2 of our program that was officially launched in May this year. The documents are available as a free download on our website, including the assessment requirements, the program requirements, as well as a main changes document. So for those of you who haven't done so already, please go and have a look and download these documents that will provide you with further information. So the question is, when can you start being assessed as an organization to version 2 of our program? And as I've mentioned just now, it was officially launched in May and can be assessed version 2 as of the 1st of June this year, with the caveat that your CAB has a license with a foundation to deliver version 2. We will also continue to run version 1.1 of the program in parallel, meaning that organizations may continue to be assessed against version 1.1 until the end of May next year. After this date, only version 2 will be available. So let's now look at the main topics covered in version 2 of our development program. The program still comprises of 2 main components, namely the program requirements itself, as well as assessment requirements. The scope now covers almost all parts of the supply chain, and it includes food and feed, catering and food service, packaging manufacturing, retail and wholesale, as well as transport and storage. The assessment requirements, just to clarify, are those that an organization will be assessed to. And the biggest changes here is that we now have one conformity level that is aligned with the current level 2 in version 1.1, as well as the inclusion of a full HACCP that includes CCPs and OPRPs. To support organizations, we have developed a HACCP decision tree, and this is a simplified decision tree that is available in Annex 3 of the program document. But note that this is not a mandatory document to use. It was developed to support organizations, so it's intended to be an aid. Furthermore, we have changed the style of our documents from questions into requirements. We've removed duplications, and as part of our continual improvement, we've also clarified some of the requirements. Other changes to the assessment requirements include the addition of key topics, such as food fraud mitigation, strengthening the contamination control requirements, aligning the traceability requirements to the sectors, as well as justifying and specifying more detailed what the documentation requirements are throughout. As mentioned before, the program requirements have also been updated. And in this next part of my presentation, I will focus briefly on some of these main changes. So when we look at the program overview, the changes in the scope are reflected, namely aligning it with ISO 22003 Part 1, which is an accreditation norm. And that resulted in us adding subcategories B3 and C0, and we've also adapted the wording so that it aligns with ISO. The scope extension is reflected, which now also includes category D under food and feed manufacturing, and the addition of packaging manufacturing. And further updates and clarifications were also made in the program requirements to further align with version 6 of FSSC 22000. When we look at the requirements for organizations to be assessed against, the outline of the program requirements were updated to reflect the one conformity level. The provision for interpretation articles have been added. The logo use requirements have been updated to align with version 6. And the mandatory assessment report format has been changed from Excel to Word, so that the look and feel aligns with that of FSSC 22000. There are 5 sector-specific assessment requirement documents available on our website. And as you can see on the screen, that includes for food and feed manufacturing, catering and food service, packaging and packaging material manufacturing, retail and wholesale, and lastly, transport and storage services. Now, for each of these sector assessment requirements documents, there's 3 main parts. That focuses on food safety system requirements, the prerequisite programs, as well as requirements for HACCP control. Now we will look at just an example from food and feed. And when you look at the screen, you will see these are the topics that are covered as part of the food safety system requirements. I'm not going to go through all of them, but as you can see, it includes things like leadership and commitment, organizational roles, responsibilities and authorities, communication, complaints handling, traceability system, etc. The PRPs is covering the full set of PRP requirements, and you can see them all on the screen. Also, once again, including things like construction and layout of buildings, the layout of premises in the workspace, allergen management, measures for dealing with cross-contamination, waste disposal, and it goes on to cover further topics like personal hygiene, rework, but also some of the new topics, as I mentioned previously, on food fraud mitigation, food defense, logo use, and labeling. And lastly, the requirements relating to HACCP. This includes the preliminary steps to enable a hazard analysis, conducting the hazard analysis in line with the 7 principles and 12 steps of Codex, the control measures, including OPRPs and CCPs, the control of monitoring and measuring, as well as handling of potentially unsafe products. And then another significant change, and this is probably one of the ones that has most impact in the assessment process, is the adjustment in the assessment duration. And as you can see on the slide, the parameters for determining duration is still based on size, or FTE, and the complexity, or the number of HACCP studies. But the duration is generally less in version 2 than it is in version 1.1. And this was part of a specific outcome of the survey, if you recall what we mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, as well as industry benchmarking. So when we look at the parameters now, the duration is now 1 day for organizations having less than 100 FTE and 1 or 2 HACCP studies, and 1.5 days for 100 FTE or more, or where an organization has 3 HACCP studies or more. It's important to note, though, that this is minimum duration, and the CAB is still responsible to ensure that the assessment duration is sufficient and suitable to ensure a proper assessment. Further changes in the assessment process includes the requirements for upgrade assessments, additional assessment documentation, for example, the attendance register, and a requirement for a signed integrity declaration, updates to the contract to include notifications on serious situations, as well as the addition of a COID, which is a unique number per organization. And this is to aid and facilitate overall traceability. And now, the last bit of my presentation is a bit more practical and focused on what are the steps for achieving conformity. where should organizations start? So they should start by downloading all the relevant program documents from our website and then completing a self-assessment of their organization's food safety system so that they can identify any gaps and implement subsequent actions. Once they are ready for an assessment, they can contact one of the conformity assessment bodies that is referenced on and listed on our website, and then obviously conduct the assessment. Following a successful assessment, a conformity statement will be issued, and as mentioned before, this conformity statement is valid for 1 year. But the organization still needs to go through annual assessments if they want to continue being part of the development program. And once they have a conformity statement, you are listed on our public register. Also, as mentioned previously, as part of the flexibility offered by the program, organizations may decide to continue with the development program, or they may decide to continue onwards and obtain full FSSC 22000 certification. That concludes my brief introduction and overview of the program. As said, please go and have a look on our website, go and have a look at the documents and download it from there. And I hope that you found this very short introduction useful. So thank you, Colin. Then back to you.
Thank you, Elzeby. Elzeby, you're always such a pleasure to work with. We're so lucky to have you as our technical director. Thank you. I do have a quick question for you before we turn our attention to Jason. We've had a question in already from Mode, and I'll read it to you. Very straightforward. As a new certification body, how can we start FSSC Development Program services to our clients? Is there any approval required from FSSC for new CBs? That's a very straightforward question for you to answer before we go to Jason. Thank you.
Yeah. So yes, the program is being offered to certification bodies who has a current license for FSSC 22000. So that is a prerequisite. And then for those organizations, or the CBs, they can contact us and request a license for the development program.
Thank you, Elzeby, and we'd love you to get in touch, Mode. Thank you for the question. We always have lots of questions. We do our best to answer them, and thanks again for all of those of you that sent them in advance. Thanks, Elzeby, much appreciated. Now, we're going to turn our attention for the next part of the presentation to Jason Nyman. As I mentioned earlier in the introduction, Jason is our market representative for Africa, and he's based down in South Africa. It's a bit chilly there, I believe, Jason, still. So we're going to turn to you now, and this should get you warmed up, and we're looking forward to your presentation. Over to you, Jason. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Colin. And thank you, everyone, for attending today. I'm Jason Nyman. I'm the regional representative or regional market representative for FSSC in Africa. And I'll take you through just the benefits of the development program as well as how it's doing in the regional or in every region, mainly focusing on Africa at the moment as well, because it is the region I'm responsible for. Okay, so the benefits, why should SMEs or small businesses or artisan businesses go for the development program? Well, first and foremost, at the moment, it is quite difficult for organizations to conform if they are quite small and they don't have the capabilities or they don't have the expertise. The other reason is also the cost involved. I think everyone's aware that there's quite a lot, everyone's struggling at this current point in time with finances. So the development program was created to help these small businesses and help them grow. It's a stepping stone for them to get into certification. So first and foremost, if you cannot afford full certification, this will be a cheaper option. In terms of costing, the FSSC doesn't really charge for a statement of conformity, so we try and make it as cheap as possible for organizations to get into the system. It's our way of giving back and making sure that we can help organizations like SMEs and artisan organizations have a system in place that can ensure food safety for everyone. Okay, it is a nice tool again for vendors to use as well. So it is useful for large organizations who has got smaller suppliers and the suppliers cannot obviously afford to get full certification. So it's And it can also be incorporated into, well, you can incorporate pieces of your supplier audits into that as well. Okay. With that being said,
Here it's okay.
sorry, let's move on. Right. So in terms of the numbers I'm looking at currently, is for the Q1 of 2025. You'll notice that these numbers we're looking at organizations that had the system from 2020 to 2025. And of that, you'll notice that 13 of the organizations that had the development certification. You'll also notice that 53 of them did not, will let their certificate expired. And at Q1 of this year, there were still 113 organizations on the development program. You'll see also how it's been split up per region, with LATAM, or Latin America, having the most number of conformity statements, and Africa following them closely with the second. In terms of numbers right now, for Africa, currently there's 36 statements of conformity in Africa, which is quite a significant growth considering we started the year with about 9 certificates of conformance, which is very good growth. Globally, total is 129. And remember, when we're looking at these numbers, we are still looking at the version 1 numbers and not the version 2. We are still in the process, or sites are still in the process of implementing and being assessed against a version 2. So this is still version 1 numbers. Africa has about 28% of the global tally for the numbers of assessment certificates, and currently there's about 12 in the system or in the pipeline with the various assessment bodies in Africa. So that shows good growth. And again, we are quite confident that the numbers will grow even further with the implementation of version 2 because of the duration that has been improved and other factors. For example, we no longer, as Elsie explained, is no longer level 1, level 2. So that we're hoping will help. We are confident will help the growth of the development program. Another thing we're looking at as well is the fact that the development program is accepted. It has been accepted by certain retailers, certain specifiers. There's a lot of large organizations that have actually been pushing for the development program, and hence the growth you notice in Latin America, Africa, and in Asia. So why is it taking off in Africa? Okay, I think from a strength point of view, there's a lot of organizations in Africa that do not have the resources to go for full certification. And this is a nice bridge for them to be able to start off with the development program, get their state certificate or their statement of conformance, and then move into full certification. The development program does help organizations, and if you look at the content of the development program, it does help organizations move closer to full certification. And one of the benefits here as well is that the FSSC does not dictate, and I think Elsie has mentioned this as well, we do not dictate the amount of time or the number of times a site can go for the development program. What is important to notice here, though, is that the specifiers or retailers or your customers, they might be able, and they can specify a duration. So, for example, they might say that all suppliers that are on the development program will have 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, depending on the specifier, to be able to move to full certification. And it's another way we're helping, or the system can help organizations move forward. Yeah. Also, it is cheaper, which I've mentioned before. Okay, it is more internationally recognized because the certificate or the statement, my apologies, the statement of conformance moves onto our register, and organizations can see it there. For example, if you have a couple of suppliers that has got the development program and you're uncertain if they are actually, if they're still conforming, you can go onto the register and you can have a look, and you'll find the details of that there as well. So it does make it a lot more, it improves the trust within the system. Also, the development program currently is being managed with the same, through our integrity team, the same as our full certification. So you have that trust in the brand, you have, the familiarity with the brand. And again, if you look at although the development program does not follow the FSSC, or it doesn't look like our scheme, a lot of the information that you find in the development program is required for full certification. So again, excellent stepping stone for small organizations. Nice way to introduce your staff. Nice way to introduce your customers. And if you're a large organization, it's a nice way to get your smaller suppliers to have some form of assurance if you are looking at using them. Organizations behind the growth. Suppliers, obviously, the food service organization is one or two of the restaurants that's been pushing this quite strongly on our advisory committee, and they have been backing the development program since inception. Companies that are implementing FSSC, obviously, they want to ensure that their suppliers have some form of systems in place. And then also not forgetting your retailers and specifiers. So large organizations will definitely be looking for this. And then retailers, a lot of the retailers out there, I say a lot, but there are retailers out there that has accepted and has put the development program on the approved list. So success for Latin America, I think the promotion of the awareness, and again, it's something we'll be working on throughout the globe, especially in Africa. I'll be focusing on awareness, increasing awareness, acceptance by retailers. Again, that's also happening in Africa. And then the motivation, because of the public register, because of the GFSI certification pathway, that you can become fully certified to FSSC and to any other standard for that matter. But obviously, we are our system is more, the program is more focused to help organizations get to FSSC, full FSSC certification. And that brings me to the case study. So this case study was done in Latin America, and the organization is a rice manufacturer. Well, they produce rice, sugar, and some dairy products as well. But for the case study, we're looking at 6 rice plants that are in Argentina. All of them went for the development program. Of the 6 plants, 3 of them actually managed to move on to full certification. And how it happened, the start of the process in 2018, the sites obviously looked at the development program as a way for them to start off with the system and start off with the basics. They managed to get the statement of conformity in 2019, and this was a level 2 statement of conformity. After having it in place for a couple of years and obviously continuous improvements that happened through that time, they were ready for the certification audit in 2022, and their certificate was issued in 2023. And based on feedback from the organization, they have indicated that the benefits of the system is strategic leadership, as you can see there, optimized distribution, training and empowerment. And again, all of these things were done within the development program to help them get to the full certification. So it is a good building block. It is something we're hoping and we are sure that will grow in the regions, specifically Latin America, Asia, and Africa, and not excluding the other regions, but because of the nature of these regions, the number of small business out there, especially in Africa, with the lack of employment, issues with finances. SMEs are popping up all over the place. So it is one of the methods we use to manage food safety within these organizations. Thank you very much. And Joshua, you will be taking over the webinar from now.
Thank you, Jason. It's over to me briefly. And Jason, thank you very much, and really appreciate you representing us in Africa. And we do have a small team in FSSC in South Africa particularly, so hence it's got a real flavour of Africa for the development programme. And you saw there as well some Latin American examples as well. For those of you, particularly in Africa, who want to get in touch, Jason's a great person to get in touch with. He can come and speak at events, and he'd be really happy to support. We're very lucky to have Jason in our team now, and I'm very proud that Jason's joined us. So thank you, Jason. It's not easy doing a presentation with so many people on the call, but we thank you for your time today. And now we can move on to Joshua Ponsami from Boxer Superstores, who's the Technical Food and Quality Manager. And Joshua, we welcome you to an FSSC webinar. You've not joined us before, and we're particularly appreciative of you joining us today to talk about the topic, which you can see on the screen, which is adopting the FSSC Development Program as a supplier conformity tool. We've had some more questions in while Jason has been speaking. Please send more questions in. And now we're going to enjoy Joshua. Joshua, over to you. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much to the speakers before me and to the FSSC. We really appreciate the opportunity, myself as well, to be able to talk about the practical aspects of adopting this program as a supplier conformity tool. I think we've heard a lot about the theory and actually the system in its concept. But what I've tried to do is try to apply practically what it would mean for suppliers to be able to do this. So I'd like to take you guys through the next steps. Okay, so we can just talk a bit about myself first, and then I'll let you know a bit about Boxer. So as mentioned, I'm the Group Food Technical and Quality Manager at Boxer Superstores. Industry across diverse retail environments. So farm manufacturing, farming throughout the retail environment. I've specialized in scaling food safety and quality programs in challenging emerging markets. A bit about Boxer. So Boxer likes to consider itself South Africa's favorite soft discount food retailer. We operate in over 500 plus stores nationwide, serving millions of customers weekly. We are mostly in the low LSM categories of South Africa, so we are very proud to be considered the people's champion. We have extensive supply network in emerging markets, which is the low LSM, as I've mentioned, and it requires robust, adaptable quality frameworks. And that's one of the key factors of what having development programs is, considering the background of where, Okay, so for anyone interested in to know more about Boxer, this is a quick journey on Boxer, which you'll find on our website, which is www.boxer.com. And you'll be able to access the journey that we started from 1977, and we continue up to today. We've also embraced digitalization as part of one of our strategies, and our entire 500 plus sites are on an online monitoring system for compliance for food safety and quality assurance, which we use the data analytics to be able to look at how we can continue to improve. Okay, so from my side as the professional in the industry, I would like to talk about the context and challenges that we face in retail when it comes to looking at food safety. So food safety in retail is a complex landscape, especially when you are sourcing from a diverse supplier base. So a supplier base that's dynamic through dynamic markets, and challenges lies in the consistent supply of quality from farm to fork across the wide range of operational maturities. So the varying supply capabilities from large market manufacturers to small local producers are one big challenge that you have to consider, because to get consistency, you need to be able to factor in what a large manufacturer can give you and what a small local producer can do. And having a conformity program, like what we've discussed so far today, allows for a level of alignment. There's a regulatory complexity, so navigating between the local and the international food safety standards and the local regulations and acts would be applicable for any of the large manufacturers or small scale producers. And having a set up system that considers the legal requirements uh, through, throughout the supply chain is very important. Ultimately, when you look at retail psychology, it's about consumer trust and developing programs where you can help a supplier to go from a small, medium supplier to a full, large scale supplier. It supports consumer trust. FSSC is GFSI recognized, so it's about maintaining confidence in the food safety supply chain. Uh, it's also about operational scalability. I've found in the years of experience that when you implement quality control, that it adapts to rapid growth. When you have proper structures in place, it leads to higher levels of efficiency from an operational perspective, and that results in rapid growth. So, why the FSS Development Program? Number one, it's globally recognized, which means FSC's GFSI recognized scheme, ensuring international credibility and aligned with the best practices crucial for global supply chain. I think Jason's mentioned a lot of retailers have added it to their list because we understand the benefit it has for small scale suppliers wanting to comply with legal requirements, and it's appreciated. It's a structured development as opposed to someone not having much controls or doing ad hoc practices to comply with food safety. This provides a structured development. So it's clear, it's a staged pathway for suppliers to improve their food safety management systems, fostering continuous improvement rather than one off audits. I think the move from version 1 to version 2 is an example of continuous improvement. It's the engagement that's led for you guys to look at that development, and another example of why the development program would help. It supports emerging markets, so tailored to bring less mature suppliers up to standard, empowering local economies while reducing supply chain risks in the undeserved regions. It enhances trust. Um, Again, I'm going to emphasize consumer trust is a very big aspect to when a customer comes to a retail store and looks at a brand. And third party verifications instill greater confidence in our products and supply chain integrity, building stronger consumer loyalty. People respect what's inspected. So having a robust program across the supply chain, which is what this could offer, is a very big benefit. So if you had to look at somebody trying to implement this, I would believe that the timeline would have to do with the evaluation and planning. So you'll have to do feasibility studies. You'll have to look at stakeholder alignment, and you would have to do pilot supplier selections. So I do believe if you were a retailer trying to implement this, you'd have to look at where you would get the best benefit and how you would be able to apply to different aspects. So, from a local farmer to a small scale manufacturer and to a large manufacturer, having a representative sample of how this program would be affecting in the different types within the manufacturing industry. There would be a pilot phase where you will have to implement with the key suppliers, and you look at the feedback collection and refine a classic plan, do, check, act logic that we would apply there. And then you would look at the full rollout and monitoring. So if you're a retailer adopting this, I would believe that once you've done the two stages, you'd then look at how you would be able to expand on the ongoing support and then perform the performance tracking. Elsie mentioned the traceability of COID. I think that's important. If you had to look at applying this as a retailer and asking your suppliers to look at a control or a program as such, their development would be very nicely tracked. So key steps, it allows us to look at how we would be able to access supply readiness. So the baseline evaluation to tailor up the support. It's about the internal alignment, so training for procurement and quality teams on the program specifics, and then training on onboarding. So direct engagement with suppliers for the system understanding, and then eventually you would have to integrate it into a system, embedding the FSSC requirements into an existing procurement and quality assurance workflow. So these key steps are quite important for us to be able to consider if you would want to do a effective change management process as a retailer, recommending this to be a preferred development program. So the benefits realized. Um, from my point of view, I feel the tangible impact would be that it will enhance supply management. It provides clearer expectations, standardized performance metrics, and improved tracking lead to more efficient collaboration. It provides robust food safety assurance, with it being a GFSI recognized standard, and the supplier base would be able to reduce overall food safety risks for any products coming into your retail space. Um, it allows for heightened compliance. Then there's the sustainable supplier based growth. As I've mentioned before, if you have a standardized system, it will allow you to increase from an inclusive economic growth point of view, and it would help you to be able to foster that quite well. The evaluated product quality is another tangible impact because the suppliers adopting the FSSC development program demonstrates marked improvements in process control, leading to higher quality products on the shelves. And a higher quality product on the shelf is going to allow for every customer to consistently get the same quality of product, building overall trust and brand reputation. So an example, I try to apply an example local to South Africa. So say if we actually look at supplier X from a theoretical point of view, based in KwaZulu-Natal, which is a province in South Africa. It's also where I'm from. Um, so if you looked at a operation that was before implementing this type of program, they would have a very basic level of hygiene, limited formal documentation, and a lot of the reliance would be on ad hoc practices, which would pose a challenge in them trying to scale up growth. Whilst they may be able to meet a minimum legal requirement, they wouldn't be equipped for a structured growth in taking on new business. But from implementing it, I would see that they would have more structured food safety management systems. They would be able to be audit ready and achieve that audit ready status, and that they will successfully expand into a national retail market. It will then provide more trust as a retailer looking at someone that's got a recognized program in place. Improve product quality. So a significant reduction in consumer complaints and returns, reduce non-conformity, so it streamlines processes that lead to fewer audits and corrective actions. Strengthen relationships, so it's a deeper partnership built on mutual trust and shared commitment to food safety. I think that's very important. Economic empowerment. Having a development program is not just about food safety, but it's going to develop that supplier and develop the people within that supplier's base. The individuals working there, the employees, everyone will become upskilled, and it will lead to creation of more jobs and then actually stimulating the regional economy. So the lessons learned, if I were to hypothetically implement this program in a retail environment and with the suppliers supplying a retailer, I would look at navigating through that journey, and I would say early engagement is key. You'd have to make sure, just like what Jason's already done in Africa and what we've seen in Latin America, is involve suppliers from the initial planning stages so they can give you the buy-in and they can address any concerns proactively. Ongoing training and support, as in any change management, being a good agent of change is to make sure that there's ongoing training and support. Food safety is dynamic. There's always changes coming up in legislation and standards, so continuous education and hands-on assistance are vital for sustained compliance. Third-party audits drive accountability. Independent verification provides an unbiased assessment and reinforces commitment to standards. As I said before, people respect what's inspected. Internal and external alignment, it will assure all internal departments from procurement, quality, and logistics align with the programs and communicate consistently with suppliers. And then we would have to also make sure that we celebrate the milestones. We need to acknowledge supplier achievements to motivate continuous improvement and reinforce the value of the program. So if you had indicators for supplier of the year, having somebody on board a development program to improve the quality standards and food safety standards would definitely be something that would add towards them being considered a supplier of the year. Looking ahead, sustainable progress is, if you had to look at the future plans, expanding programs reach would mean that we'd have to integrate more suppliers across diverse product categories into the FSSC development program. Whilst the program in principle would be able to work generically across, real actual data of different products or food products manufactured across different environments would allow us to look at how we could continue to improve it and to see and track the effectiveness. And that sort of information from accurate data would allow us to be able to continue to improve and lead to a high level of efficiency. Collaborate with shared learning, host workshops and forums for suppliers to exchange best practices and challenges. It's always important to remember that many minds are greater than one. So collaboration in these kind of spaces will allow us to improve and to grow. Leverage data analytics. So as I've mentioned before, key is the quality data. So utilize platform data to identify trends, predict risks, and optimize program interventions. It's very important in 2025 that we acknowledge and respect the importance of our data needs to be analyzed and the way we're going as a society and as a world globally when it comes to digitalization. So it's quite important to include that in future plans. And then continuous improvement. Implement feedback loops with suppliers and auditors to involve the program with industry advancements. It's not just about obtaining a certificate of conformity or even getting full certification from a development program, but it's about looking at how can we continue to improve and evolve this program. Maybe we start off saying we would do it for a supplier that meets the minimum prerequisite programs, but also then in the future look at how we could actually engage with gap audits and assessments and training material to help suppliers that can't meet those prerequisite programs. So definitely continuous improvement is something that we'll have to look at in future plans if we want to make this viable and succeed. Okay, so key takeaways: our commitment to excellence. Food safety is not just a compliance issue, it's a foundation of consumer trust and sustainable growth. Enhance food safety. The FSSC Development Program significantly evaluates supply food safety management. It goes beyond basic compliance. As much as it sounds like a development program, the word itself describes what it would do to a supplier that would engage in that. They would be able to develop from one point to the next point. They would be able to evolve into a more robust manufacturer or supplier into retail. Support governance and growth. It strengthens our governance framework while enabling responsible growth of our base supplier, particularly in emerging markets. It has long term value, transitioning from in house systems to globally recognized standard, bringing significant long term value and insurance, and it raises the bar. So not only would Boxer, but any retailer would be committed to raising the bar for food quality and product safety across the entire supply chain. There's only benefit that can come from improved quality, and it will increase consumer trust, ensuring the best for our customers. Okay, so that's me, and yeah, I'll be taking questions at the point when I'm allowed to.
Joshua, thank you very much. You are welcome in the studio anytime or to one of our webinars anywhere where you are in the world. That was fabulous. Elsaby and I are smiling at each other here in the studio because there were some great phrases that you used there. Foundation of trust, respect what is inspected. I think we loved that one. And most of all, I think you've given a really great global perspective of how FSSC, through the development program, can help organisations like yours and your supply chain. Thank you so much for coming and being here today. We are going to come back to you with a question shortly. So now we're going to turn to the Q&A that we've already had. As you can see, we're running over the hour. That's because we had a slightly delayed start, but we do really want to answer some of your questions, so we're going to keep going for a bit longer. And with that, the first question we're going to come to is actually one for you, Elsaby, which is, and I'll read it, it should appear on the screen too. What is the difference between the FSSC 22000 development program and FSSC 22000 itself? If you could answer that, that'd be great. I think you probably already picked it up. That's some AFAF, and we'll come to that one with you first. Thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. And I'll try and keep this brief, bearing in mind that we're running a bit over time. But essentially, FSSC 22000 is accredited food safety system management system certification. It results in a 3-year certificate subject to annual audits. Whereas if you look at the development program, it is unaccredited and it's an assessment program. So it's built on annual assessments resulting in an annual conformity statement. So that's one of the key differences. The other thing, when you look at the requirements, FSSC 22000 is much more comprehensive. It includes a full management system that is based on ISO 22000. It includes the PRPs, but it also has FSSC additional requirements. So much more rigorous in terms of the actual requirements. When you look at the development program, as I explained earlier, it was really developed from a food safety perspective. So looking at food safety as the core, so it covers those food safety elements and the PRPs as the main focus of the program.
Thank you, Els. Been much appreciated, and Afa for the question there. So really about, essentially one of our mission is make the world a better place. Food safety is our route to do that, and obviously with 24 great workplaces. So I think that's covered that one. And the next one is for Jason, actually, and that should come up on the screen as well. There's a couple of questions here from the same person. We'll turn to the first one, which is, what are the key benefits for an organisation transitioning from in-house compliance to independent third-party conformity through the FSSC Development Program? This one and the next one is Prodromus, and that's for you, Jason. Thank you.
Okay, so the key benefits of moving from the in-house to the independent conformity is the fact that it is independent. The organization will have a better, or the suppliers will have a better chance of, or understand better that the certificate of, or the statement of conformance is done through independent bodies. Remember, the development program, for example, is audited by assessment bodies, by either assessors or auditors, or FSC auditors who also become assessors, and the certificates or the statements go onto the international register on our website. So it's just that added bit of conformity, that added bit of trust again, and just the reputation that the organization has. So with the in-house system, again, it's subjective and not objective as with a third-party conformity. So yeah, I think it's the objectivity of the third-party assessment versus the subjectivity of the in-house compliance.
Thank you, Jason. Much appreciated there. And Prodromos, we have another question from you. We had quite a few, actually, so we've filtered these down a little bit. The next question will appear on your screen now, and I'll start reading, which is, how does the development program support suppliers in emerging markets with limited resources to ensure the reliability and safety of the supply chain? Now, this question is actually going to be for Joshua. So let me read it again while Joshua has a quick think about it. How does a development program support suppliers in emerging markets with limited resources to ensure the reliability and safety of the supply chain? Big question, but I know you can do this one, Joshua. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I believe the FSSC Development Program helps suppliers in emerging markets to improve food safety through step-by-step approach. It provides free tools, training, and global recognition. Whilst LCP is mentioned, it's not accredited. I believe it's actually an appetizer because it stimulates the mind and the individuals on the program to want more and to go for the full certification, which is accredited. So it's making it easier for small businesses to build reliable systems and to gain access into an international supply chain. So it's a starting point that I do believe leads to a greater goal of them achieving full certification through the FFFC 22000 program.
Thank you, Joshua. Much appreciated. Great answer. Thank you. And we do have more questions that have come in during the webinar, but we're not going to have time to answer all of those. But the next question, I'd like to turn to Jason for the answer on that one. And the question, again, will appear on your screen in a moment. And this one's from Sylvia. And it is, how can we ensure the process safety of our SME suppliers who don't have third-party certification? And these are real questions, and you sent these in before. And Sylvia, we hope this answer is what you're looking for. So Jason, please can you answer this question for Sylvia? Thank you.
Okay, so what would happen here is your internal or your supplier auditing system would be used initially to help set it up. You wouldn't, so you would then try and follow some form of, or your checklist should follow some form of certification. So if you, for example, are a FSSC site, you might then base your supplier audit questionnaire on the FSSC scheme, or at least some of it. Or you could even use the development program questions as well, but it would be through your supplier auditing process. Thereafter, you could look at assisting and a lot of companies do it with assisting the clients by doing continuous improvements. So obviously, you'll follow up on corrective actions the following year. You might even go back the same year, depending on the risk. If it's a high-risk supplier, you definitely go more than once a year. If it's a low-risk supplier, you then just do the corrective action follow-up, perhaps as something that they can send into you. But yeah, it would be through your supplier audits.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you, Sylvia. We've got one more for you later, Jason, to finish with, but we've got Alsaby, a question for you in the meantime. And this question is from Paul, and again, it'll come up on your screen in a moment. And it's basically, how long does the typical development program timeline take from initial assessment to full certification readiness, Paul's saying, and I'm sure you can answer that in your own way. Thank you, Alsaby, here in the studio.
Yeah, I think you can probably interpret this in two different ways. So I'll try and respond maybe on the first one in terms of how long does the initial assessment take until you get the conformity statement, which is maximum around 2 months. Because first the organizations has to have their assessment. If there's any non-conformities, they have 28 calendar days to then actually address and close it out. And then the conformity assessment body has to do a technical review and a decision before they can actually issue that conformity statement. Now that's my one interpretation of this question. The other one is how to reach full certification, which I'm assuming means how do you get from the development program potentially to FSSC 22000? And that is a more difficult one to answer because it really depends on the maturity of that organization. Because as I explained before, one of the key things that is different between FSSC 22000 and the development program is the implementation of a full management system. So that is a bit more onerous, and not every organization is equally geared to achieve that. So yeah, I know it's a bit of a vague answer, but it really depends on the maturity of the organization in terms of how long that will take.
Thank you very much, Alsaby. Great answer. And of course, it's one of those bit like how long's a piece of string. It depends on maturity. But Paul, the production manager there, really hope that helps. And please keep the dialogue going. Let's have a final question. And it really comes to you, Jason, actually, this one, because it was about cost. And you use the word cheap a few times. You could say it's a better value. It's part of our giving back. But Abhishek here, and it's the last question we can take today, said, what is the cost of the development program? And there are different ways to look at this, but can you give any tips on this one? The cost of the development program.
Okay, so the cost of the development program is dependent on the CAB, the certification or conformity assessment body. So what we do as the foundation is we charge the cabs a annual license fee. It's a once-off payment, and then we don't charge any additional cost as we would with the full certification. So when you have full certification for every certificate, there's a fee that we charge for that. With the development program, that does not really, we don't really charge anything. So the cost of the audit would depend on the CAB. So obviously, and that does mean that it could vary depending on which conformity or assessment body you're using. So that when you do it, have a look around and get quotations. Also, it will depend on the where you're situated. For example, if they have got assessors in your region, that might be a lot cheaper because it wouldn't be a cost associated with travel. If you are a bit more remote, it might the cost might increase based on travel. So again, it's there isn't a set cost. It's basically up to the assessment bodies. But yeah, my advice to you would be then, yeah, have a look on our website. There's a list of assessment bodies. Have a look at which ones are in your region, and then also just get quotations and see, which might be a better option for you in terms of cost.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you, Abhishek, for the question. And Jason, great answer, really appreciate it. And Jason, as our market representative for Africa, is there any time for you to answer these kind of questions. I'm going to wrap up now. And the first slide as we wrap up is to give you an overview of our market representation. Of one of these is Jason. And you can see there, I won't go through all the names today, there's a lot of them. If you want anything at all about the development program, people to come and speak, to talk to you about it more, we'll be very happy to come and join you in those marketplaces. And we've also got covering FSSC 24,000. We've got Alice and we've got Erwin looking after digital solutions as well. And in the future, we'll have more webinars, of course. And the next one actually is on the 22nd of October, and we'll tell you a bit more about that in due course. As we wrap up today then, we'd like to say thank you very much to our speakers today. Thank you, Alsaby. Always great to join you in the studio. And we also have Jason waving away there. Thanks very much, Jason. And our big star guest speaker today is Joshua. Thank you, Joshua, from Boxer. We really appreciate it. What a fantastic presentation that was from Joshua as well. And even though it took a few minutes to get us started and blow away the cobwebs of summer, we hope you had a great presentation today from the team. Please get in touch. Good luck with the development program. Thank you very much from us all in the Netherlands, and thank you for joining today. Bye-bye.